Hello everyone, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. So while this video is not really following kind of the order of how I planned on doing things, I was kind of working on archangels there consistently, so this isn't really following the order of curriculum, but you're not going to want to miss this video. We are going to cover some pretty interesting things on sex magic, a little bit about the OTO, and I also want to get into the topic with you guys of an advanced version of the Qabalistic Cross, which I think could help in your practices. There's a lot of times before work or something, where I really don't quite have the time to do a lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, but even if you can do a Qabalistic Cross real quick, you will notice that will make a difference in your day. It will help the energies move along in the way that they need to. So I want to talk a little bit about an advanced Qabalistic Cross, which should help you guys. We may even have time to get into an advanced middle pillar technique, which I have talked about before. I also would like to talk about something regarding the lesser banishing and the lesser invoking ritual of the pentagram as well. If we have time to get into that. So just lots of different tidbits of information that I've been gathering, and some of the more interesting bits I wanted to share with you guys because things get kind of a little spicy when it comes to sex magic and things of that nature. Otherwise, besides the notes I'm working on some morals and dogma notes as well. So I'm staying busy with all of this type of work. All this esoteric stuff. I'm also working on my book, Freemasonry and Ceremonial Magic, which talks about the connection between those two subjects. The way the book is divided up, in the beginning, I kind of go, I talk about my own personal story. I introduce what the book's about in the beginning, in the introduction. Then I talk about my own story. I give a list of terms that are listed throughout the book. That way people already know what the definitions of those words are in proceeding forward. Then I actually take the reader through the Kabbalistic Tree of Life and all the Sephiroth, as well as the Empyrean Heaven. And then we start talking about the degrees of Freemasonry and how that's all interconnected and interplay into that. So that is my kind of like my magnum opus I'm working on. I also would like to write a book on archangels. As well. So I think that all of that right there, that's stuff I'm kind of working on. If I have extra additional time too, I would also like to go back and I started to write a novel in my junior year of high school. So we're going back to when I'm 17, 18 years old. I was working on this book, and I pretty much finished the book, but I've never gone back and fixed all the errors, never published it or anything like that. So that's kind of something I've been working on the side as well. So let me not ramble on too much longer. These are some interesting segments I found from a book, and it looks like the book, I don't remember who wrote the book, but it's called OTO Rituals and Sex Magic. But it has a lot of interesting, if you are into the OTO or if you want to know about how that order came to be, I think even the rituals are listed in that. There's another really good book as well called The Secret Rituals of the OTO, I believe it is. And I think these are really expensive books, the physical copies. So if you can't get a physical copy, there are some PDF files out there. Online as well. So, as we all know, Crowley is a unique character. He's a much darker character, and he really came here to play some of the darker archetypal roles. His path is a lot darker than mine. I walk more of the gray magician path. I've talked about a lot in my videos before. So I don't have anything against the OTO or anything like that. I visited an OTO temple once. I think the people there were really cool. They're super open-minded. If that's your path, that's cool. But I also want to educate people on when you get deep into that, into the OTO and stuff like that, some of the things that go on. And some of this, too, I was trying to go back and because there's some reference material, they refer to some of Crowley's works, and once I get to that part, I'll try to read it. And I kind of looked up a little bit of it, and Crowley talks a lot in kind of almost riddles. That's really not even how I would completely explain it. Riddles isn't, it's not quite the right word I'm looking for, but it's always like symbolic, like language, and he's always kind of talking around things rather than just saying what it is. I think a lot of the times Crowley could just simply say what he's talking about, but back then it was kind of dangerous to say certain things, so it does make sense to conceal it under, you know, a bunch of kind of babble and what is seemingly nonsense. I thought this was interesting. So this book is about Crowley. I don't think it was written by Crowley or Theodore Roos, but that's who it's about. It's about those two guys. Yeah, the guy's referring to them as if they are somebody else. So I don't know who wrote this book, OTO Rituals and Sex Magic, but you could easily look it up. Both Roos and Crowley wanted to reform the society itself. Of course, the sexual education of the citizens was the responsibility of the priest doctors. So Roos, I think I'm saying it right, Roos, it's R-E-U-S-S, wrote in 1914, if the youth is mature, then he will complete the first coitus, first sexual act, under the direction and instruction of the matrona, or matrona, M-A-T-R-O-N-A, the high priestess, in a ritual. In a ritual manner and in the form of a sacramental act, which sex is a sacred act. It's a very sacred act. And we see it not only downplayed in this society, but degraded. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And that's, I think, what organizations and teachings of, like the OTO, for example, know that it's a mighty, you know, beautiful thing. But we've been so taught to be ashamed of it, and then we end up directing that beautiful, cosmic, creative, divine energy into people and outlets that are not meant for us. So we end up expending our life force and energy in our lives, you know, misdirecting that energy a lot of the time. We need to find people who are conscious like ourselves, you know, to share that energy with. I think that's very important. Just the same will the virgin be introduced by the matrona to the mysteries of the sex act in the temple. As long as the virgin and youth live outside of the lawfully prescribed condition of marriage, they are bound to seek all gratification of desire. So I thought that was really interesting. That's the first page. Actually, I don't know what order these are really in. These are just 4 screenshots I took from this book that are really interesting excerpts. So I've really dug around on the internet and done a lot of, like, just really deep diving on some of this to get some of these tidbits of esoteric knowledge. So I'm sharing this with you guys because it's all out there. It's all on the internet anyway. It's all free. We hold basically the Library of Alexandria in the palm of our hands, you know, today. It's so crazy how this grand technology is just so misabused and used for such sometimes mundane things. Mundane's not always bad. It's not always bad, but it's too rampant in our society, and we have to bring the mystery schools back. We have to elevate mankind because he is so lost right now. Right now, mankind in general just really needs to find itself. Okay, so the OTO, it's very much symbolizes the masculine sexual energy, that solar energy. So take that into account as we read this. Crowley often refers to like the giant phallus of God and all these different symbols, which if we look at like Osiris and stuff like that, you know, that story, his body was cut up into pieces and then Isis retrieved the phallus. Anyway, this is some wild stuff right here. Crowley equated the glands of the penis with the shape of the human brain. In 1906, Clement de Saint-Marc published his Libertine Le Eucharist, about which Roos said that this text contained the central secret of the OTO, union of man with God through consumption of sperm, as allegedly taught by Jesus Christ. Now, we've talked about this before. Donald Michael Craig in Modern Magic has a term for it. It's a certain kind of alchemy. In magic, or sex magic, there's two different kinds. There's an energetic magic, and then there's an actual like physical alchemy, and I don't know what the term of that is, but that's like the consumption of semen and things like that to add to magical powers, like actually working with the bodily fluids and stuff. See, that's where I don't dive into that realm. Like, if that's the realm that people like want to focus on, that's cool, but I'm more about us Scorpios anyway. We tend to be pretty monogamous beings, I find. So it's really about finding that one partner that you can share that sacred energy with. And whether you're connected or not during the sacred act, you could just touch and do things that are sensual, that really activate all kinds of, just simple touching. But even if you're connected, you can work on the energy, the flow of energy. And it's not so much about the absorption of the fluids, the bodily fluids and stuff. There's so much information when it comes to sex magic. I'm not super educated on the subject. I just know things about what I've come across and what I've found. So anyway, the difference between the energetic, the physical alchemy, or the actual like use of these things like sperm, and then the energetic alchemy, which is like working with the chakras, the kundalini energy on an energetic or vibrational level. And then, of course, it's all kind of a mix of both if you're working with the physical substances too. But I tend to purely stay in the energetic realm of things. I think that's what's smarter. But that's just me personally. I'm not bashing on anyone's path. I think all of these things are extraordinary to study and to learn about. So they were talking about the union of man with God through consumption of sperm, as allegedly taught by Jesus Christ. And I've never heard that before either, that Jesus taught that. But maybe that's some secret that's been hidden for so long. I don't know. Consumption of sperm as a magical tool was then anchored as 8th degree in Crowley's OTO. The specific meaning of sperm as carrier of the logos can be found in the 9th degree, although sperm is going to be mixed with vaginal fluids. But Crowley demoted the 9th degree to a magical degree only, where the sexual fluids are to be smeared on crystal balls of vellum in order to evoke spirits or demons. I think when you get into this kind of stuff, you're attracting a lot of potential things. So always take care in knowing what spirits you're invoking and things like that. Even in Donald Michael Craig, he has a book that's about sex magic, and he even talks about at a certain point in that, and I've heard from people in real life as well, that there's groups and stuff where they're performing the sex act and they allow the spirits to enter their body and basically allow the spirits, the demigods and goddesses, to work through their bodies as those spirits or beings are actually having sex then. It's not the people whose bodies are being taken over, so to speak. So it gets really deep and it gets really crazy and interesting. But yeah, for me personally, I prefer working with the energetic and angelic energies and consciousness. I think I noticed, this is something that I'll share with you all, but I am pretty sure I know when my son was, when the energies formulated to create him. I know the night. I couldn't tell you what the date that it was, but I remembered the night and the time that it was because Gabriel's energy was present. And it totally makes sense. And I felt that energy. It was present with us while we were in the sacred act. So I think working with angelic intelligences is pretty safe. And I am going to answer the door real quick. So we will have to pause this.